Dina turned from the window. Her restless gaze swept the library, noting all that was familiar. Interrupting the dark, richly paneled sides of the room was a wall of bookshelves, floor to ceiling. A myriad of deeply toned bindings formed rows of muted rainbows. A sofa covered in antique velvet faced the fireplace, flanked by 2 chairs upholstered in a complementing patterned fabric. In a corner of the room stood a mahogany desk, its top neat and orderly. The door to the library opened, and Dina turned. Her hair shimmered in the dim light, a paler gold than the ring on her finger. A pang of regret raced through her that her solitude had been broken, followed by a twinge of remorse that she had felt the need to be alone at this time. Closing the door, Chet Stanton walked toward her, smiling despite the faintly puzzled gleam in his eyes. "So this is where you've got to," he murmured, an unspoken question behind the indulgent tone. "Yes." Dina nodded, unaware of the sigh in her voice or how forced her smile looked. As he came closer, her gaze made a detached inspection of him. Like hers, his coloring was fair, sandy blonde hair falling rakishly across his forehead, always seeming to invite fingers to push it back in place. His eyes were a smoke blue as opposed to the brilliant shade of hers. At 36, he was 12 years her senior, a contemporary of Blake's. But there was a boyish air about him that was an integral part of his charm. In fact, it was with Blake that Dina had first met Chet. The cobwebs spun around that thought to block it out. Slim and supple, Chet was only a few inches taller than she was in her heels. He stopped in front of her, his intent gaze studying her expressionless face. Dina was unconscious of how totally she masked her inner turmoil. As his hand settled lightly on her shoulders, she was passive under his touch. "What are you doing in here?" Chet cocked his head slightly to the side, his gaze still probing. "I was thinking." "That's forbidden." His hand slid around her, and Dina yielded to his undemanding embrace, uncrossing her arms to spread them across his chest. Why not? His shoulder had become a familiar resting place for her head, used often in the last 2.5 years. Her eyes closed at the feathery caress of his lips over her temple and cheek. "You should be in the living room noisily celebrating with the others," he told her in mock reproof.